If I asked you how far humanity could go, most of us would point up here. And if I ask you where we actually are, we'd point somewhere lower. This distance isn't created by one huge mistake, it's created by accumulation. Before I explain what I mean by that, let's run a quick experiment. By a show of hands, how many of you in the last month have gone to bed later than you planned to? Okay, how many of you in the last month have exercised less than you think you should? And for how many of you, raising your hand twice today has been the most exercise you've gotten so far? How many of you have opened your phone just to check one thing but stayed longer than you meant to? Interesting. Now, finally, how many of you in the last month have not always washed their hands after leaving the bathroom? A little less honest. What you just saw wasn't random. It was a pattern. In mathematics, patterns matter more than individual numbers. And in human behavior, they matter even more. And what's fascinating in this is we're more willing to admit using our phones excessively, but washing our hands, that's difficult. And that's not because we don't know any better, but rather because our actions aren't necessarily determined by our knowledge, but by the thought patterns that govern every decision we make. I'm sure you noticed the drastic change between the number of hands raised for different types of questions. Why is that? Why is it that we're more likely to tell white lies just to be more socially desirable? Do we also subconsciously tell those white lies to ourselves? What impact does it have on us as the human race? Good morning, everyone. I'm Dia Samaya, and today I want to show you how mathematics explains something we think is unpredictable: human behavior. Humans instinctively interpret life through a finite lens. Oh, it's just once. One late night, one skip practice, it's okay, this won't happen again. But in reality, our behavior continues. Just as sequences extend and patterns keep growing in math, one skip becomes a pattern, one excuse becomes normal, and one habit repeats. In mathematics, we distinguish finite and infinite quantities. A finite number is contained. It is bounded, measurable, and has a definite end. An infinite quantity, however, has no terminal point. It continues, not because it suddenly grows, but because it never truly stops. Our action is finite, but the pattern that begins is infinite. And once we understand that behavior operates in patterns rather than single moments, the next question becomes this: how does one action influence another? This is where Fibonacci sequences come in. A Fibonacci sequence is a series of numbers where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones. And this sequence goes on forever. Let's have a look. 0 plus 1 gives us 1, 1 plus 1 gives us 2, 2 plus 1 gives us 3, 3 plus 2 gives us 5, 5 plus 3 gives us 8, and so on. Similarly, change happens steadily. Just as each number in the Fibonacci sequence goes from the two before it, habits and patterns build over time until they suddenly seem impossible to ignore. Take heart disease, often described as a silent killer. You don't get heart disease from one big traumatic mistake, do you? But from ordinary behavior repeated: a slightly unhealthy diet, chronic stress, consistent lack of sleep. None of these feel urgent on their own, and that's precisely the danger. Think about how we read a graph. We don't focus on a single data point. We step back and look at the shape it forms. The curve tells the story, not any single data point. Human behavior works the same way. One late night, one skip practice, one small excuse doesn't matter on its own. What matters is the direction we're moving in. And that is what pattern recognition is all about. Learning to analyze repetitive actions and making change from early on. The real issue is that we only sense urgency after something extreme or frightening happens. Until then, small mistakes remain unnoticed not because they're harmless, but because their effects are delayed. Think about the difference it would make if we paid attention to repeated behavior early on instead of waiting for serious consequences to force our attention. So, how do we actually make change? Not temporarily, but in a way that lasts. Implement habit tracking. Ask yourself, what is it that I wish to incorporate into my daily life? Now attach these new desired behaviors into your existing daily routine and keep monitoring them. You don't have to immediately make a huge change. Go step by step. Improve by 1% each day. And trust me, you will notice changes. John Maxwell says it the best. You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. So step up there, make change, incorporate new habits, make them part of your life. But remember this, change doesn't demand perfection. One or two mistakes won't have a lasting impact on your behavior. Repeated mistakes will. And when we learn to notice our patterns early, we stop being surprised by our outcomes. When we learn to make these little changes, we build something stronger than certainty. We build unbreakable character. Thank you.